wanted to know, last Friday is happening. Are we getting Chris Tucker back?
Me, Ice Cube, Aaron Magruder, and DJ Pooh were just together sitting in a room writing this movie. This movie gonna be crazy.
Something just shifted with Last Friday, and fans are only now starting to catch on. The long-awaited return to the Friday franchise is finally moving forward, but recent updates suggest the film isn't unfolding the way many expected. If you haven't been paying close attention, you may have missed where things actually stand right now. So what's really happening behind the scenes of Last Friday? And what do these latest developments mean for what comes next? Join us as we break down what's actually happening next with Last Friday. The deal that took 23 years to close. On April 2, 2025, New Line Cinema boss Richard Brenner finally said what everyone already knew was coming. He told The Hollywood Reporter that another Friday movie is actually happening. The rumors are officially confirmed. Ice Cube signed a deal with Warner Brothers and New Line to write and star in the fourth film. It already has a name, Last Friday. The guy who built the whole thing is back in charge. It only took 20 years of begging and a few 100 million streams for a studio executive to realize that people actually want to see a sequel to a classic. It is amazing how fast a deal gets signed when someone finally notices there is still money left to be squeezed out of a 30-year-old idea. The reason this news feels like a big deal is that the movie almost died 1,000 times. The whole thing started back in 1995 with a tiny $3 million comedy about two guys doing absolutely nothing in South Central. It ended up making over $28 million. Then the sequels Next Friday and Friday After Next dropped in 2000 and 2002. That was 3 movies in 7 years. After that, the franchise just vanished. For 23 years, there was nothing but silence. It is impressive how a studio can ignore a cash cow for over 2 decades just because they cannot figure out how to talk to each other. It takes a special kind of corporate talent to kill that much momentum for a quarter of a century. Ice Cube spent over a decade banging his head against a wall. He handed in the first script for the 4th movie back in 2012. A few years later, he teamed up with DJ Pooh to write another one, aiming for a 2020 release date that never happened. The studio just kept demanding rewrites, like they were grading a middle school essay. Then everything went south. John Witherspoon passed away. A pandemic shut down the world.
John Witherspoon died yesterday in Los Angeles for his role as rapper Ice Cube's father in the Friday film franchise.
And Cube ended up calling out Warner Brothers for holding the series hostage. It was a complete disaster from start to finish. Somehow the stars aligned. The contract is signed, the title is official, and Ice Cube says the script is finished. People want to know what finally made the studio stop acting like a brick wall and why everyone had to wait so long for a simple answer. It is a messy story. Before getting into how things got fixed, it is worth looking at just how pathetic the situation was behind the scenes. The path to this movie was not just a slow walk, it was a total train wreck. And what happened between 2022 and 2025 is the kind of Hollywood power struggle that nobody was supposed to know about. The battle Ice Cube almost lost. For years, fans assumed the delay on the 4th Friday movie was about money, or scheduling, or simply Ice Cube being busy. The truth was something far more frustrating. It was a battle over who actually controlled the franchise, and Ice Cube was losing. In 2022, Ice Cube was a guest on Mike Tyson's Hot Boxin' podcast.
Your home dog, Ice Cube.
Yeah, what's happening with you?
It's all love, brother. I'm so happy to see you, man.
And said something surprising to fans of Friday. He explained that Warner Brothers, which now owns the rights to the Friday movies after acquiring New Line Cinema, was unwilling to work with him. Warner Brothers is acting strange right now, he said. I don't know what they're doing. They seem confused. He added more when Tyson asked if he would buy the rights back himself. Cube completely rejected that idea. I'm not going to pay for it. They should give it to me, and they will make money. I'm not going to pay for my own work. That's silly. This is a classic Hollywood horror story that happens way too often. A creator starts with nothing, works like a dog, and builds a massive hit out of thin air. Then a giant corporation buys the studio, and suddenly the person who built the whole house is locked out of the front door. Ice Cube wrote the scripts and starred in every single movie. He spent years keeping the franchise on life support while the suits sat on their hands. Even with all that history, he still had to beg for permission to make another film from people who probably haven't even seen the first one. Word on the street is that Ice Cube shot down an earlier version of the movie because the studio wanted to gut the cast. They apparently tried to cut out legends like Smokey, Debo, and Ezel just to save a few bucks and avoid the headache of casting. Cube wasn't having it. He allegedly refused to put out a Friday movie that trashed the legacy of the originals. He decided that having no movie at all was better than putting out some watered-down garbage that nobody asked for. That standoff dragged on for years and probably would have lasted forever. The only thing that stopped the bleeding was a leadership shakeup at the top of Warner Brothers that completely flipped the script. The guy who finally broke the stalemate was someone Ice Cube actually worked with 30 years ago. Having an old contact return to a position of power changed the entire game. What happened next was not just a business deal. It was a reunion that nobody saw coming. The reunion that changed everything. In June 2024, Ice Cube went on Flavor Flav's Sirius XM show and finally gave everyone a real update. For the first time in forever, something was actually happening. The reason for the sudden progress was pretty basic. An old friend was back in charge. Mike DeLuca and Pamela Abdy took over the film side of Warner Brothers back in 2022. DeLuca is not just some random suit to Cube. He was the boss at New Line Cinema in the 90s when the first Friday got the green light. He was actually there from the start and backed the movie when everyone else thought it was a joke. Now, 30 years later, he is running the entire show. Ice Cube kept it simple when he explained what happened. He pointed out that the studio finally got some new leadership that actually knows what they are doing. His old contact, Mike DeLuca, the guy who was at New Line back when the first Friday and Players Club were being made, is now running the show at Warner Brothers. DeLuca and Michael Gruber basically looked at the situation and asked why the franchise was stuck in a hole. They decided it was time to finally get the project moving again. That was the turning point. Two guys with a shared history finally sat in a room and asked the obvious question: why is this movie still stuck in limbo? Word is that DeLuca made it a personal goal to get the project moving. The franchise was worth too much money and had been collecting dust for way too long to keep ignoring it. The studio finally realized that leaving a fan-favorite series on a shelf was just bad for business. By March 2025, Mike Epps was already leaking the news on The Breakfast Club. Cube called me the other day and said, "We just finished the deal," Epps revealed. "So we're doing it last Friday." Richard Brenner himself officially confirmed the deal weeks later. But the real drama was not whether the movie would get made. The real drama was who would actually be in it. Because the cast question is where Last Friday gets truly complicated, and the answer nobody expected is slowly beginning to take shape. Will Chris Tucker finally come home? There is no character in the Friday franchise more beloved than Smokey. Chris Tucker created something with that role that has never been replicated. The fast-talking, irresponsible, deeply lovable best friend became one of the most iconic comedy characters in cinema history. "You got knocked the heck out." 3 decades later, people still quote those lines every single day. And yet Smokey has not appeared in a Friday movie since 1995. Chris Tucker did not return for next Friday. He did not return for Friday after next. And now, with Last Friday confirmed, the most burning question in Hollywood is whether he will finally come back. The reasons Chris stayed away from the sequels have evolved over the years. Initially, sources suggested it was money. After Friday, Tucker's career exploded with The Fifth Element and the Rush Hour franchise, eventually earning him $25 million per film. The budgets for the Friday sequels simply could not match what he was worth. Then Chris became a born-again Christian and reportedly felt uncomfortable with some of the content in the scripts. In a 2015 interview, he said the experience of making Friday was one of the best of his life, but returning had always been complicated. In 2024, Chris addressed the question again with careful language. "I don't know. It's got to come back right," he said. "At this point, I'm only doing stuff that I feel. If I could do my best and have a lot of fun, I'd have to be correct. That is not a yes, but it is also not a hard no." Mike Epps made his feelings loud and clear on The Breakfast Club in March 2025. Hopefully we can get Chris Tucker in it. We need to get Chris Tucker in that, because people still love Chris Tucker. He's still smoky. He laid it down. He positioned me to do it. Chris, if you're listening, we need you, baby boy. That is a very public plea, broadcast to millions of listeners, directed at one man. Ice Cube, for his part, has been deliberately vague about which cast members will return, saying only that the new film will introduce new characters while bringing back familiar faces. Allegedly, sources close to the production have suggested that a specific scene has been written with Smokey in mind, waiting for the call that may or may not come. Whether Chris picks up that phone is the question that could define whether Last Friday becomes a legend or just another sequel. But there is something even more painful hanging over this film than the Chris Tucker question, and it is a loss that no casting announcement can ever fix. The ghosts the film cannot escape. Before anyone can celebrate Last Friday, they have to reckon with the people who will not be in it. The Friday franchise has lost 3 of its most irreplaceable figures, and their absence is not just a creative problem. It is a grief that the entire cast and fan base are still processing. John Witherspoon played Mr. Jones, Craig's father. He was the heartbeat of the franchise, the man with the garden hose, the firm opinions, and the kind of loud, unmistakable love that only fathers who act tough can have. John had been a comedian and actor for decades before Friday.
Every time I come in the kitchen, you in the kitchen.
But this role made him a legend. He passed away on October 29, 2019, from cardiac arrest at 77 years old. The news devastated fans across generations. At his funeral, Ice Cube reportedly stood up and pointed out, painfully, that he had turned in 2 screenplays for the 4th Friday movie, and neither had ever been greenlit. It was a reminder that the movie could have had Mr. Jones in it. It should have. Tiny Lister played Debo. There is perhaps no villain in comedy film history more genuinely terrifying and yet somehow still funny. The giant man who took whatever he wanted from the neighborhood, who terrorized everyone on the block, and who got knocked out at the end in one of the most satisfying moments in 90s cinema. Tiny Lister passed away on December 10, 2020, at 62 years old. He had reportedly tested positive for COVID-19 before his death, though the listed cause was heart disease. He was found unresponsive at his home in Marina del Rey, California. And then there was Al Johnson, who played Easel, the neighborhood thief whose unpredictable antics provided some of the franchise's funniest moments. Johnson also passed away in 2019, just months before Witherspoon. 3 of the most beloved characters in the Friday universe are gone within a year of each other. Ice Cube addressed these losses directly in his April 2025 interview with The Hollywood Reporter. "It's something you have to address," he said. "These are beloved people, not just characters in a movie." He confirmed that Last Friday will acknowledge the deaths of Witherspoon, Lister, and Johnson within the story. The film, he explained, is about revisiting a family in 2025, catching up with where everyone has ended up. That means confronting who is no longer there. The question hanging over every fan now is whether Last Friday can still be funny while carrying that weight. Ice Cube says it can. "It's still going to be fun," he insisted, "but the comedy will be different. It has to be." And yet somehow, this film is not just about looking backward. There is a new generation that Ice Cube wants to pull into the Friday universe, and what he's planning may surprise everyone. The next generation of Friday. Every great franchise eventually faces the same challenge. The original cast ages. The cultural moment shifts. New voices emerge. And the question becomes whether the old world and the new one can exist in the same film without one canceling out the other. For Last Friday, Ice Cube seems to have a clear answer. Bring them all in. Mike Epps, who has been part of the franchise since next Friday, confirmed in his Breakfast Club interview that the new film will feature a younger wave of comedic talent alongside the returning veterans. He specifically name-checked DC Young Fly, the Atlanta-born comedian and actor who has built a massive fan base through social media and television appearances. "We're going to bring in the new comics," Epps said. "We're going to bring the DC Young Flies and all of them in with the OGs, and it's going to be a good time." This approach is not accidental. Ice Cube has spoken publicly about what Friday means across generations. He has said that he regularly gets stopped by young people whose parents showed them the original movie, kids who were not born when it came out, but know every line. The franchise has survived and thrived through cultural transmission, passed down from parent to child like a family heirloom. Bringing younger performers into Last Friday is not just a casting decision. It is a statement about legacy. People close to the project say the movie might go back to basics by taking place over one single Friday. The plan is to use a cast that covers multiple generations with different stories that occasionally crash into each other. This setup would copy the simple style that actually worked for the first movie. It gives the new actors a chance to show up without getting totally buried by the legends from the original cast. It is a bold move to try and recreate the magic of the 90s by just doing the exact same thing again. Apparently, the secret to modern filmmaking is just hoping that the audience is distracted enough by new faces to not notice they are watching a 30-year-old formula. Ice Cube was also confirmed by Variety to be taking on the director's chair for Last Friday, not just writing and starring in it. That is a significant development. It means the film's creative vision will be entirely under his control in a way that earlier Friday movies were not. F. Gary Gray directed the original. Ice Cube was the creative force, but not the one calling the shots on set. This time, he will be. The question is whether a film can balance tribute, comedy, grief, nostalgia, and the introduction of a new generation all at once. That is a hard thing to pull off, but if anyone knows how to make a complicated Friday work, it is the man who invented it. But there is one more story lurking beneath all of this, a story about money, legacy, and a battle that allegedly almost derailed the entire project before it could even begin. What Last Friday really means and why it cannot fail. Let us be real about what is actually happening here. Last Friday is not just another sequel or a lazy attempt to milk a dead franchise for more cash. There is a lot more going on than just a bit of nostalgia. For Ice Cube and the fans, this movie matters more than most people want to admit. For black cinema in general, this film has a massive amount of pressure riding on it. It is not just about laughs. It is about proving that this specific era of filmmaking still has a pulse. The Library of Congress officially shoved the original Friday into the National Film Registry in 2023. This is the exclusive club for movies that actually matter to history or culture. Now, Friday is technically on the same level as The Godfather and Boys and the Hood. It is hilarious that a low-budget comedy about two dudes doing nothing on a porch in South Central is labeled an American classic. This move just proves the movie is more than a handful of jokes. It is officially a permanent part of the national record. Friday matters because it basically broke the Hollywood playbook. It proved a black creator could run the show, build his own world, and hire the people he wanted without begging for permission. The movie spoke to an audience that big studios completely ignored for years. It was a massive career starter too. It gave Chris Tucker a stage to become a star and put Regina King in front of a huge audience long before she was winning Oscars.
The Oscar goes to Regina King!
The most impressive part is that it did all of this with a tiny budget and zero help from the establishment. It is always funny when the experts in Hollywood get their minds blown by a movie that actually reflects real life. It only took a shoestring budget and a couple of guys on a porch to prove that the big studios didn't have a clue what people actually wanted to watch. Last Friday was created in a Hollywood that is very different from the one in the 90s. The budget is much larger and the pressure is really high. Ice Cube is now 56 years old, and he has been working on this project for over 10 years. There were moments when he probably thought the movie would never happen. Deals fell apart at the last minute. Scripts were approved only to be thrown away a week later. Many studio executives said they liked the idea, but acted like they couldn't pay for it when it was time to fund it. The fans are the only reason the Friday movies are still a thing. People spent years memorizing every single line and turning the best scenes into endless memes. The original movie got streamed so many times on Peacock that it became one of the biggest hits on the entire platform in 2024. Parents even forced their kids to watch it like some kind of mandatory family ritual. These people kept the lights on, and kept making noise long after the suits in Hollywood stopped paying attention. Ice Cube said it best in one of his recent interviews. "People love Friday because everyone's lived Friday. Everyone has lived 1,000 Fridays. That is the truth underneath all the studio drama and rights disputes and casting questions. Friday is not just a movie, it is a feeling. And last Friday, I had the chance to give an entire generation that feeling for the very first time." So after 23 years, 2 lost stars, a rights war, and a franchise left in limbo, do you think Last Friday actually delivered? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.